Guide to the Collection. Museum of Exoplanetary Archaeology. New Toronto, Mars Colony 7. First edition. All rights reserved. Copyright 2021 by David Peterson. All artwork copyright 2021 by David Peterson and Mandy Conti. Partial funding for the permanent exhibition is provided by and by local council, your voice in the coalition. Welcome to the museum. Main level, a look back at the early collection. Exhibit number 4. Depiction of a fertility goddess, with anti-gravitational base. No obvious power source. Provenance unknown. This enigmatic addition to the collection was rescued from neo-corsairs by the Antiquities Recovery Unit at the Museum of Exoplanetary Archaeology. Exhibit number 5. Depiction of a unique organic find, collagenic plant tissue, with similarities to Tetraodontidae and Hippocastanaceae, discovered at Fibonacci Beach, Kepler 62e. Grand tentacles layer, circa 1.2 million local cycles BT. Exhibit number 6. Depiction of a component from an unknown device, tantalum substrate with tellurium plating. Spontaneous photovoltaic conversion requires caution. Mandelbrot marshes, Tau Ceti F. Metropolis layer, circa 700 local cycles BT. Exhibit number 7. Depiction of a so-called space pearl, a decorative object with religious significance, fashioned from a single calcareous concretion from an unidentified invertebrate. Crystallization suggests repeated scoring with a far-IR excision tool. Sierpinski planes, Kepler 186f. Temporal layer, circa 1250 local cycles BT. Exhibit number 9. Depiction of a decorative artifact recovered from Hausdorff North, Trappist 1D. Recursion layer, circa 2000 local cycles BT. Exquisite openwork filigree with delicate organic motifs, fused onto iridium and painted with a durable synthetic resin. Exhibit number 10. Depiction of a stele discovered at Lake Koch, on Teagardens Star B. Big Bad layer, circa 100K local cycles BT. Technically a probability amplitude capacitor or PAC, such artifacts are renowned for changing shape in response to the proximity of an observer. Nicknamed the Menagerie after a digger noticed the resemblance of the eigenstates to Terran animals including fish and frogs. This exhibit is a reproduction, as the original was stolen while on tour. Exhibit number 13. Depiction of Pithoi Cache, from New Nassau's, on Teagardens Star B. Gosper Island, layer unknown, circa 2.4K local cycles BT. Containers bear superficial similarity to CAMRS ware, with raised floral and shell motifs partitioned by bands. Privately funded excavation, not coalition approved, damaged vertical stratification, introduced self-replicating materials, and only documented the finds on social media. Exhibit number 14. Depiction of 3 artifacts from the Hall of Trophies in hexaflake state, Kepler 186f. Ball-cork layer, 1.5K local cycles BT. Material is an organic derivative, calcium carbonate and bioplastic matrix. The researchers Affine et al. argue that ritualized sporting competitions culminated in the captain of the winning team literally becoming the trophy through a process of sacrificial 3D printing. Guide to the collection. Museum of Exoplanetary Archaeology. New Toronto, Mars Colony 7. First edition. All rights reserved. Copyright 2021 by David Peterson. All artwork copyright 2021 by David Peterson and Mandy Conti. Partial funding for the permanent exhibition is provided by and by local council, your voice in the coalition. Welcome to the museum, main level landing, upcoming events. Retrospective number 24. Later this season, Dante without Virgil, the singular life and untimely death of a trailblazer to the stars. Don't miss this long overdue retrospective on the illustrious career and incredible finds of the late Professor L. Pentaflake. The illustration depicts the so-called thruster cluster on Tau Ceti F, the dig he was overseeing at the time of his tragic demise in the Valley of the Pinwheeler Actinoids. Public Lecture Number 33. A sumptuous three-course consumable lecture entitled Fresh Eyes on the Kepler Plague, an interdisciplinary look back, will be available in interactive hall at the Museum of Exoplanetary Archaeology from next month. Fresh Eyes weaves together disparate findings in bioarchaeology, osteoarchaeology, urban archaeology, nanotechnology, cultural anthropology, and other fields to arrive at a comprehensive biopsychosocial model of this devastating time in galactic history. Topics include the cultural and environmental preconditions that spawned the nanovirus, what the skeletal biomarkers say about mortality, wealth, and social standing, the role of hyperspace trade in transmission and containment, the invention of encapsulating spheres, and how the limitations of this treatment still shape behavior and belief systems across multiple worlds. For any visitors to the museum with gastrointestinal issues, this lecture is also available as a neural mist. Public Lecture Number 41. Mars Colony 7 is proud to be hosting the next in the series of Phoenix Emeritus Lectures, which will be presented in the Nimoy Lounge at the Museum of Exoplanetary Archaeology on Saturday at 1300. Connecting the Bones, will look at the challenges and rewards of sorting through the extraordinarily varied finds, recovered from the Playa and former methane seabed sediments, at Hades 1 on Kepler 62e. The distinguished panel of 5 with backgrounds in zooarchaeology, vertebrate paleontology, xenobiology, exoplanetary geology, and remote imaging will be phasing in, from across the solar system and beyond specifically for this talk, which will be available as a neural mist at the conclusion of the Q&A. For reservations, contact Museum Outreach. Guide to the collection. Museum of Exoplanetary Archaeology. New Toronto, Mars Colony 7. First edition. All rights reserved. Copyright 2021 by David Peterson. All artwork copyright 2021 by David Peterson and Mandy Conti. Partial funding for the permanent exhibition is provided by and by local council, your voice in the coalition. Welcome to the museum, lower level 1, visiting treasures from the Jupiter 6 galleries. Exhibit number 17. depicted as a musical instrument from Kepler 186f. Mount Sierpinski, moraine layer, circa 500 local cycles BT. Designed for single use on ceremonial and religious occasions, the artifact is played by dropping it from a great height. Music is generated as the rush of air is funneled through the apertures before the instrument shatters on impact. Exhibit number 18. Depiction of a decorative scroll urn recovered from Hausdorff South, TRAPPIST-1D. Iteration layer, circa 1500 local cycles BT. In iterative times, the ruling class would commit a scroll to memory and then burn it as a sign of wealth and mental prowess. The gilded reliefs illustrate key scenes from the scroll, in this case a history of invasions. Ironically, the practice of scroll burning has resulted in most of their accomplishments going up in smoke. Exhibit number 19. Depiction of a brooch liberated from neo-corsairs by the Antiquities Recovery Unit at the Museum of Exoplanetary Archaeology, and subsequently purchased by the J6G. Provenance identified by palynology and stylistic analysis. Sierpinski planes on Kepler 186f, spatial layer, circa 200 local cycles BT. Excellent example of modified mass production, as the base was 4D printed and then meticulously phase bonded to metallic and organic decorative elements by a skilled artisan. Exhibit number 20. Depiction of reconstructed bioelectric circuitry from the ruins of a personal flying vehicle. Recovered at Hausdorff East on TRAPPIST-1D. Echoic layer, circa 400 local cycles BT. Encoded with a metallic resin, such parts were tuned to individual owners for purposes of security and flight control. To this day, the proximity and mental state of the occasional visitor interact to trigger a transient electrical response in the material. Exhibit number 21. Portion of the proximal interphalangeal joint of a military droid from Talseti F. Lake Turd Dragon, urban sedimentary layer, circa 1K local cycles BT. Flexible metal sinews provide a powerful yet controlled grip, while Zweiterian spacers ensure a quick response. The spherical pitting on the ventromedial surfaces is consistent with neutralization by an invasive nano-weapon, possibly during a battle. Exhibit number 22. Depiction of 4 zoomorphic figurines from the Gosper Island dig on Teegarden Star B. NKN layer, date uncertain. Stylized but recognizable portrayal of an indigenous even-toed ungulate with similarities to an earth camel. The assemblage was cast in a bronze analog from what was clearly a standard mold, but vary in degree of subsequent embellishment. The cache was discovered with a chit which translates, in part, to including tax. Exhibit number 23. Depiction of metallic vessels rescued from high geosynchronous orbit above Gliese 1061b. Low-tech, but expertly crafted, the 4D printed designs are devoid of internal circuitry, let alone propulsion systems. Cosmic ray stratigraphy identifies the age as between 75K and 1 million local cycles BT. However, orbital decay would have occurred in a fraction of that time. The researchers, Blamont et al., argue that the protruding panels act as stabilizers, shifting the COG periodically by thermal expansion. MS profiles and trace biomaterials rule out 1061b as the planet of origin, shifting attention to adjacent water world 1061c and snowy 1061d. Preliminary surveys are unpromising, but given the age of the artifacts, there are almost certainly treasures deep beneath the waves and/or ice. Guide to the collection. Jupiter 6 Galleries. Coalition Science Council Station, Jupiter Independent Territories. Copyright 2021 by David Peterson. All artwork copyright 2021 by David Peterson and Mandy Conti. Welcome to the J6G. Jupiter Gallery 1, Inner Systems Archaeology. Exhibit number 45. Head of a service droid. Mandelbrot steps, Tau Ceti F. Middle sedimentary layer, circa 1.2 K local cycles BT. Flexible metal resin, mass-produced, internal components sufficiently intact to reverse engineer the basic specifications. This is an important find, as almost no technology predating the AI wars has ever been discovered. CORE is currently negotiating with the SETI Protectorate for permission to reconstruct the original code through extrapolation of magnetic mapping data. Exhibit number 54. Knee joint from a military droid, recovered on Tau Ceti F. Downstream of Dragon Falls. Superficial layer, circa 800 local cycles BT. Specimen includes femur, tibia, and cruciate ligaments, but is missing the patella. Unusually robust contingent of definites and repairinites were inadvertently reactivated during the recovery process, leading to contamination of several devices, including the dig coordinator. Emergency protocols were enacted, and the coordinator was successfully evacuated to a nearby coalition facility, where he is expected to reboot without incident. Exhibit number 56. Book repository from caves at Hausdorff Southeast, Trappist 1D. Redundant layer, circa 900 local cycles BT. Unique, intricately crafted cylinder phase boxes built from combinations of brass, burnished steel, polished stone, and glass. In use for more than a local century, and possibly concurrent with scroll burning practices at the Southern Court. These finds were initially interpreted as a reaction to the destructive excesses of the Hausdorff dynasty, in other words, a ceremonial attempt to preserve knowledge rather than reduce it to ashes. More recently, the researchers Pino et al. Have noted that since none of the cylinder boxes incorporate hinges or clasps, and all appear designed to remain permanently shut, they in fact represent a continuation of the elitism of the scroll-burning culture. Specifically an attempt to render knowledge inaccessible, just by different means. Incidentally, most of the texts, which are laser-etched onto sheets of natural resin, either detail the daily activities of socially prominent individuals or describe how to operate devices. Exhibit number 62. Automated Local Administrator for the Big Bad Empire. Trappist 1D, Pascal's Bog, circa 9,800 local cycles BT. At its height, the reign of terror initiated by the tyrannical AI known as Big Bad, encompassed every system within 70 light-years of Teagardens Star B. Automated processing nodes such as this one were installed on each annexed world, to coordinate the subjugation of the indigenous population, with an eye to plundering their resources more efficiently. On the destabilization of the empire, the administrators were left to face the pent-up resentment of their charges, and most ended up slowly and creatively disassembled. This rare find escaped the fate of similar servers, as it was tipped into a lake, where it lodged in the sediment and remained forgotten until the bog was dredged. Note that in line with coalition regulations, neutralization of the neuromaterial was confirmed prior to salvaging. Exhibit number 63. Replica of an administrative communications device from the shared dynastic treasury, 3R1 Hall, on Gliese 581c. Central City, date unknown. Much of the information on this reclusive culture must be inferred, as asking questions is considered bad taste. It is believed that this instrument was used to hold summit meetings between the leaders of the two colonies in the temperate band on 581c, and the home world, almost certainly 581g. The signal from 581g was somehow projected from the central dais, while the central city signal appeared on the projector above, and their sister colony, now in ruins, below. Nothing beyond a printing scan was permitted, so we can only speculate on the technology, likely a variant of phase-enhanced solid holography. Exhibit number 67. Deep Sea Nightmare from the Before Time. Indicative of the highly refined metalwork in the dynastic treasury on Gliese 581c. Smoked bronze casting gilded with copper and gold, copper and silver, and other alloys to create subtle color contrasts, then worked and polished, and finally completed with spot applications of varnish. The artist appears to have had an animal in mind, which is problematic, as there is no complex life outside the colony walls, and certainly no deep seas anywhere on the planet. An intriguing possibility is that the piece represents a collective memory of something on homeworld 581g, which is known to have substantial water reserves, but remains unexplored due to a reluctance to establish ties with the coalition. Exhibit number 69. Analysis of the artifacts in the dynastic treasury on Gliese 581c has revealed an unexpected find. This is a functional seal, matching the lock on the entrance to the ruins of the sister colony, on the opposite side of the temperate zone. Official inquiries about its founding and loss have gone unanswered, in part because asking questions is discouraged in this culture. Coalition Archaeology plans to investigate the viability of using a 4D print of this seal to gain access, and mounting a low-key reconnaissance mission, without asking permission of the dynastic representatives, so as not to give offense. In addition to being enormously important in its own right, Colony 1 might provide information about enigmatic homeworld 581g, the only planet in the history of the Coalition to decline first contact.
Guide to the collection. Extrasolar Annex, Serenitatis Complex, Taurus-Littrow Lunar Repository.
Copyright 2022 by David Peterson. All artwork copyright 2022 by David Peterson and Mandy Conti. Welcome to the Taurus-Littrow Lunar Repository. Second floor, Orion Wing. Exhibit number 75. In an impressive display of experimental archaeology, the Dragon Falls team on Tau Ceti F has successfully activated a service droid designed from middle sedimentary layer components. Circa 1.2K local cycles BT. They hope to infer the original scope of activities from the unit's behavior and range of motion. For safety reasons, the fully revived experimental droid, or FRED, only incorporates standard off-world control algorithms, and all of Fred's reference parts predate the AI wars. Exhibit number 82. The reconnaissance team is continuing with the daunting task of cataloging the literature found in the ruins of Colony 2 on Gliese 581c. This culture was evidently as expressive, as the populace of Colony 1 is taciturn. Their preferred medium was holographic etching, which they applied to virtually every exposed surface, including purpose-built statuary such as this delightful piece, from the library alcove. Surface layer, circa 85K local cycles BT. Compounding the challenge for the researchers are the difficulties with translation. It is clear that the language consists of geometric ideograms, primarily hexagrams, with a superficial similarity to Western Zhou bronze script, but the dearth of punctuation, or grammatical particles, means that in the absence of a viable conversion matrix, solutions based on internal logic must be considered specious. Given the ongoing territoriality dispute, assistance from Colony 1 is not likely to be forthcoming. Exhibit number 83. A further cache of 3 memory material disks has been found following a cave-in at the Hausdorff Feast project on TRAPPIST-1D. 2 of the artifacts remain inert despite best efforts, but the third responded to pressurized immersion in a saltwater bath, by decompressing into a personal hydrofoil. In early tests, forward motion above a threshold speed leads to sustained circulation around the lower projections, resulting in considerable lift. The elegant design, which is optimized for smooth travel and accurate turns, is consistent with the recent hypothesis that such disks were adapted from ancient First Systems technology. This is the third working vehicle recovered from among the artifacts associated with settlements of colonists from sister planet 1E, and dates to approximately 400 local cycles BT. Exhibit number 84. Depicted here is the oldest artifact so far recovered by field teams at Kepler 186f. Valley of the Bones, monastic layer, circa 3K local cycles BT. The mirror of equanimity consists of an unidentified animal skin, pulled taut and attached to an alabaster frame. The skin has been rendered neuro-resonant through pre-treatment with a series of biomimetic mineral washes. Staring into the mirror at a prescribed distance induces a feedback loop that amplifies electrophysiological signals, primarily in the limbic system. In effect, any emotional state other than perfect equanimity is heightened, presumably to the point of discomfort or worse. Ironically, this meditative training tool is now so brittle that the presence of a strongly agitated person induces micro cracks in the surface, and would eventually shatter the artifact, were it not in its Faraday display case. Exhibit number 85. Artificial plant recovered on Kepler 186f from a dig overlapping the former Imperial Gardens. Swansong dynastic layer, circa 250 local cycles BT. The court artisan has used an unusual 4D printing process to preserve the vibrant colors and fine detail of the original, which is fortunate, as there is no longer any trace of the species depicted. The piece dates from a time when horticultural portraitists were held to the highest standards, and were dealt with severely if their creations could be distinguished from actual flora by any of their aristocratic patrons. Exhibit number 86. Another important find has been reported by the Global Seabed Initiative, stationed at the Orbital Coalition facility above 1061C. Systematic scans for pressure-resistant treated glass have revealed an automated complex, stationed above the southern pole. The structure, estimated at 65K local cycles old, is much smaller than New Pavlopatry, but unlike those ruins, is actively drawing power from geothermal sources, perhaps for the benefit of multiple drone craft, which are berthed in the central hangar bay. Preliminary attempts at communication have gone unanswered, but the initiative is undeterred, and is busily planning a follow-up mission. Exhibit number 87. It has been confirmed that the Coalition Research Facility in permanent orbit around Gliese 1061c has been destroyed. The preliminary report by the Interstellar Forensics Unit indicates that the station was targeted simultaneously by projectiles from the South Pole and at least one other planet site location. The last message from the Global Seabed Initiative detailed the discovery of an ancient automated complex on the polar seabed, and there is speculation that the team's efforts to establish communications were misinterpreted as a hostile gesture. More to follow.
Guide to the Collection, Coalition Heritage Month at the Terran Art Museum and Cultural Preservation Society.
Copyright 2021 by David Peterson. All artwork copyright 2021 by David Peterson and Mandy Conti. Welcome to the TAM CPS Bridge Deck Special Exhibition Room. The Armida Incident, plus Lunar-inspired artwork from the permanent collection. Exhibit number 131. The Oversight Committee for Special Projects has released its report regarding the threatening transmission received following the Coalition Science Council's second use of the controversial DICE furnace. The committee notes that the source of the signal remains unknown, no clear danger has been identified, and the possibility of a hoax by anti-science advocates cannot be discounted. It has therefore advised that the project be restarted with an abundance of caution. DICE, which stands for Deeply Interdimensional Causality Engineering, is a means of manipulating the fabric of reality to select for a desired outcome, such as the fortuitous appearance of a probe at distant space-time coordinates. While this cutting-edge approach offers tremendous advantages, such as circumventing the need for traveling through space over extreme distances, detractors note that rewriting history could have unpredictable and potentially catastrophic effects. The Science Council wasted no time in announcing the start of a third DICE-related project, the investigation of an artificial solar system, nearly 5,000 light-years from the Sun. Depicted is an artist's rendering of one of the intriguing planets on its encounter with the revolutionary DICE probe. The president of Remember Venus, the Council's loudest detractor, could not be reached for comment. Exhibit number 132. There has been a disturbing development in the Coalition Science Council's third application of innovative DICE technology to rewrite the fabric of space-time for research purposes. Instead of the expected data stream from the distant solar system under investigation, sensors returned this distorted version of the original signal, which had been blocked and refracted back to source through some unknown process. Of even more concern is the incongruous image of an hourglass, inexplicably superimposed. Everyone but the council members is interpreting this as, time is up, and many are wondering if we have inadvertently manipulated ourselves into the eye of a hurricane. Exhibit number 133. Oh, swear not by Armida, fickle sister, inconstant, that monthly changes in her circle orb, but by Selene, lest that thy love prove likewise variable. Coalition Science Council News, unthinkable and terrifying. Armida, one of Earth's two moons, has inexplicably disappeared. No debris. No unusual energy signatures. Simply gone. How can we even begin to calculate the ramifications of this inconceivable event, which is surely connected to the recent warning issued by powers unknown, following the third activation of the DICE furnace? Adding to the surreal nature of this attack, are preliminary reports that up to 50% of the population has absolutely no recollection of Armida, instead asserting with conviction that the Earth has always had only one moon, absurdly named, Moon. Discounting group hysteria, this nightmarish turn of events can only mean that we are at war with an enemy capable of undermining the nature of our reality in ways that we can scarcely fathom, let alone protect ourselves against. The next moves by the CSC will be critical for preserving the fidelity of our past and the very possibility of a future. For our race and perhaps the coalition as a whole. Exhibit number 134. Do we still live in a society if our only commonality is paralytic confusion? Fathers remember sons that mothers never bore. Daughters feel certain that they don't exist because their parents met while watching the Earth rise above a lunar city that was never founded. Too much. Too much to ask of minds only meant to parse a single reality, and even that, an instant at a time. As perhaps its last official act, the Science Council has decided to load the dice furnace and all related materials onto the Prometheus, and launch it directly into the Sun. There is surely nothing to be gained from this collective acknowledgement of arrogance, save brief catharsis, in the solace afforded by a momentary illusion of control. Exhibit number 135. Oh, swear not by the moon, fickle sister, inconstant, that monthly changes in her circle orb, but by the sun, lest that thy love prove likewise variable. Update, a resolution of sorts. Concomitant with the immolation of the dice furnace, the two incompatible timelines seamlessly annealed into a single historical record, in which all agree that there is, and always has been, only the single moon. As mysteriously as it began, the end of the world is officially over. Yet everyone remains cognizant of the events leading up to this crisis. And a sense of what life was like, under the shadows of the twins, lingers maddeningly, like a dream. Looking forward, we are at once shattered and healed, confused and enlightened, as we each face the daunting task of mourning a version of ourselves that never was.
Postcards from a Neo-Romantics Extrasolar Grand Tour, with selections from the writings of Lord Byron.
Copyright 2021 by David Peterson. All artwork copyright 2021 by David Peterson and Mandy Conti. Soul. Portrait of the author with the Mediterranean coast in the distance. Dear me. Hope you are well. I'm writing from the picturesque shoreline at World, Mediterranean branch, the day before departure. As you know, arranging for a year off was problematic, but it was good of Central to finally allow me to clone my core, install it in a disposable frame, send it on the grand tour, and then reintegrate on a return in a year's time. It's sad that I can't go, but at least I can go. A cacophony of choice awaits. A din I plan on taming with long silent walks and extrasolar climbs. There is pleasure in the pathless woods, there is rapture in the lonely shore, there is society where none intrudes, by the deep sea, and music in its roar. I love not man the less, but nature more. Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, L.B. Soul. Portrait of a stranger at Sol 3 Terminus. Dear me. My extrasolar grand tour began propitiously with a chance meeting in the Earth Departure Grid Lounge. This fine fellow's love of travel instantly marked him as a kindred spirit, and his opinion of our blue marble was so positive that verily it put me to shame. Ah, Gentle, fleeting, wavering sprite, friend and associate of this day. To what unknown region born, wilt thou, now, wing thy distant flight? Adrian's address to his soul when dying, L.B. Tau Ceti, 12 light years. Thruster Town, Tau Ceti F. Dear me. During the AI wars, the skies were darkened by enormous ships shuttling troops to the front lines and returning with parts for the recycling plants. After the sentient dust had settled, the thruster pods were repurposed as makeshift dwellings for the few survivors. Thruster Town is a reminder that scraps must suffice when a golden age has been squandered. In massy hoariness, the ruined wall stands when its wind-worn battlements are gone, the bars survive the captive they enthrall, the day drags through, though storms keep out the sun, and thus the heart will break, yet brokenly live on. Child Herald's Pilgrimage, L.B. Tau Ceti, 12 light years. Refuse Hill, near the Tur-Dragon Hypocenter, Tau Ceti F. Dear me. Sorry it's been a while. I took rooms for a couple of solar weeks at the border of the habitable zone, not far from Tur-Dragon Falls. As a writer, I thought it would be worth putting up with the nanites and radiation for a chance to converse with the descendants of the Cetan work camps. In truth, I think I was actually looking forward to the challenges of boutique squalor. Surprisingly, their privation is mediated by a community of inscrutably motivated volunteers, working quietly to provide the necessities of life to a population too worn down to offer much except an occasional appreciative glance. The worlds are bigger than I know. Till taught by pain, men really know not what good water's worth. Don Juan, L.B. Tau Ceti, 12 light years. Oasis City, Tau Ceti F. Dear me. The monotonous desolation of the Hamiltonian desert heightens the impact of this respite from the heat and dust when it suddenly appears on the horizon. How reassuring the gates must have been for stragglers displaced by endless cycles of famine and war. Standing alone in the orange dusk, I fancy their voices echo still, above the wail of the stinging sand and the hum of the maintenance droids. In the desert a fountain is springing, in the wide waste there still is a tree, and a bird in the solitude singing, which speaks to my spirit of thee. Stanzas to Augusta, L.B. Tau Ceti, 12 light years. Tomb of the Unknown Android, Tau Ceti F. Dear me. Now overgrown with air sponges, this monument was erected jointly, as a tangible first step towards healing and reconciliation, following the cessation of apocalyptic hostilities, nearly a local millennium ago. An acknowledgement of shared pain and loss, the memorial complex thankfully marks the last instance of coordinated planet-wide conflict in local history. Yet peace and progress still remain a dream for most of this fractured populace. The midnight brought the signal sound of strife, the morn the marshalling in arms, the day, battle's magnificently stern array. The thunder clouds close o'er it, which when rent, the earth is covered thick with other clay, which her own clay shall cover, heaped and pent, rider and horse friend, foe in one red burial blent. The eve of Waterloo, L.B.